Welcome back to the Backwards History Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Will, here with my co-host, Kevin. Say hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Shut up, Kevin.
Hey, don't tread on me.
Good one. Well, first, I want to start out this podcast episode by talking about the little contest we got going on that we did promise that we would talk about the prizes this week. The premise of the contest is you email us at backwardshistorypodcast@gmail.com and we will send you back a list of questions. These are only questions you could answer if you've listened to the episode that has the answers in them. And it'll span pretty much our entire last year of podcasting. And then there's a section of no wrong answer questions.
Oh, yeah.
We just want to get a little bit of feedback, what you like, what you don't, suggestions, whatever. Granted, if you don't answer those questions, your entry is then null and void. And the first person, or the first three people, to send back all correct answers and that section filled out first will win one of three prizes. The first place prize is going to be a $25 gift card to Amazon. Second place prize is going to be $15 gift card to Amazon. And the third place prize is going to be a $5 Amazon gift card. All three will come with the same George Washington Funko Pop figure that we have here in the studio. Yep. And a pocket constitution signed by both hosts. So get those entries into us and hit us up on Facebook. If you don't want to email us, private message us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, Backwards History. You can find us. Just hit us up. Say, hey, want these? We'll figure out a way to get you those questions.
That's it.
And then also don't forget to go check out Mike Ramsey Music. He's the dude that does the music for the podcast. It's good stuff. Just released an album last month. Go support him. He supports us. So, but yeah, the little quip at the beginning, don't tread on me.
That's the one.
We'd noticed during all of this hubbub, we won't discuss the particular hubbub. A lot of people have been quoting a very famous American from a long, long time ago. And more notably saying, "Give me liberty or give me death." We figured this was a good time to talk about that very famous American. And, mainly because he was someone who not only said things, but did things. He talked the talk and walked the walk. And we're talking about none other than the founding father, Patrick Henry. And this is where I'm going to let Kevin take it.
Thanks, Will. Patrick Henry, founding father, a name I would hope most Americans would recognize at least somewhat. Like, hey, that sounds familiar. He's a very important figure in early America and a very powerful force behind the revolutionary movement. He is famous for his one-liner that has been condensed down to the last line of "Give me liberty or give me death." And as Will mentioned earlier, that's something a lot of people. It's kind of a rallying cry, if you will, of a lot of protesters today who are, in a nutshell, protesting against the government overreach during these troubling times, during these emergency times. And it's fitting that they would go with Patrick Henry in the line, "Give me liberty or give me death," with what's at stake with the whole virus impact in the country and around the world in general.
Hey. Can't say the V word. We can't say the V word. I said we're not going to talk about the V word.
Not explicitly, but okay.
That's true. Continue.
But Patrick Henry, as I mentioned, he was a founding father. He was a planter, a lawyer, and a governor of the state of Virginia. He was very anti-British rule.
Wait, what state was that?
Virginia.
The state of Virginia?
That's the one.
The state of you have no liberty here because a certain governor says you don't, Virginia?
That would be the one.
Okay, continue.
He was a Virginia governor. He did not like British rule. He did not like being under the yoke of the British crown, and was very, very outspoken about it. He was a very well known speaker, and he used his persuasive speaking in his law practice, but also in helping convince more colonists for the cause of liberty. One thing I find very interesting about Patrick Henry is even after the revolution starts and freedom's won, he takes his anti-British government monarchy, if you will, attitude, and he applies it to this new government that's been formed and holds them to the same standard. He actually would not endorse the Constitution until the Bill of Rights was ratified. So it wasn't just I don't like the British because they're British. I don't like the British monarchy because of their oppressive reign over the people. And he held the newly formed federal government, the United States, to the same standard.
Most notably,
Mhm.
with him being a lawyer,
Right.
one of the main amendments to the Constitution of the first 10, the Bill of Rights, that he pushed for was the right to trial by jury.
Right. If you're accused of something, well, you have due process. You can accuse me or whatever, but you have to prove it.
And
So it's
then
not
you have to prove it to a jury of my peers that then either
unanimously.
have they either have the ability to convict me of this crime.
Mhm.
They have the ability to say that I'm not guilty of this crime, and then they have the ability of what's called jury nullification, pro or against. You can say someone's guilty of something that, per the law, word for word, they wouldn't necessarily be. That would be jury nullification in the positive or negative. And
Yeah.
then you have the ability to say someone's not guilty, even though they may have clearly done X
Mhm.
in the spirit of the law or in the spirit of this law shouldn't be a law. You
Mhm.
can nullify it by voting not guilty.
It's a very
It's
good
a
point.
check and balance between the people and the government. But sadly, that whole practice has been kind of squashed because certain places it'll actually get you arrested
Mhm.
or even suggesting the use of jury nullification.
It's very much frowned upon, I guess is the way to look at it. And it's like the whole, county cards. It's not illegal. It's frowned upon. Um,
So are a
uh,
lot of the rights that keep the government in check, but
fair is fair. uh, but yes, that's something we pushed for back in the 1700s, and here we are in 2020, and it still affects people's lives every day. And people ask, why should I study history?
if the glove does not fit, you must acquit.
Johnny Cochran.
Right?
So we mentioned his famous quote, "Give me liberty or give me death." Now, the quote in its entirety was uttered at the Virginia Convention in March of 1775, where the Virginia government is trying to decide what to do. They're not exactly sure if they want to go fight or if they're going to try to reason with King George in a more peaceful manner. And this kind of upset Patrick Henry, who said, "Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what courses others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." And he's basically talking to these people like, look, we're already fighting. A peaceful resolution is not going to be found. Like literally, our men are our brethren are already in the field. The fight is here. Why are we standing here not doing anything? And it spurred the people to action. It, you ever watched the Patriots where Mel Gibson's in they're at the convention and the guys like West Virginia and Virginia may be at war, but South Carolina's not. And a lot of people don't realize that the colonies at the time were separate. They were all governed separately under the British Crown.
Like
So it's not.
the word state has been given a modern definition, or kind of its real definition has kind of been pushed away. State literally means a state. Like an entire country would be considered a state.
Right.
We are the United States, whereas here in the psyche of the typical American citizen, a state is just another part or portion of the whole. When it was founded, it was intended to be, this is a country, this is a country, this is a country. We all just kind of do our thing together, kind of like the European Union was.
Right. And how Texas remained independent for 11 to 13 years, somewhere in there. Like, they were their own country before they were admitted into the United States. One of the big reasons being it was such a large amount of territory. They weren't sure. They wanted to bring it in as separate states, and Texas was like, no, either one or none kind of deal. And eventually they won out. But that leads me to the next quote that Patrick Henry is famous for. And he's talking to another group of delegates. He says, the distinction between Virginians, Pennsylvanians, New Yorkers, and New Englanders are no more. I am not a Virginian, but an American. And so he's telling them now, we're in this together. This fight it's not just one or two colonies fighting. We need to unite under one and for hope to survive. Again, a very persuasive speaker, very passionate. Had a very successful law career, which he pursued adamantly, turning down several different government jobs because he wanted to continue on with law and helping people. And he just government he dealt with it here and there, but he never. I would say he never really fully committed to it. It was more one of these things of, I've kind of got my hands in it here, but this is, being a lawyer is where I'm most effective at.
That quote that spans so many different possibilities, including some of today, is life so dear or peace so sweet.
And that is a line that is just it's timeless, I guess you could say, especially even back then as in today, dealing with government and government overreach and, just trying to amass more and more power in central government. It's just one that it hits on so many levels, and while it's a short quote, it's one that's very powerful. It kind of gets right to the heart of the matter.
One thing that really annoys me, though, about a lot of the quotes and a lot of the founding fathers' speeches and things, especially during the revolutionary time frame, a lot of them talk about slavery and chains and da-da-da. At the same time, not thinking, and I'm not saying that, this is the 21st century or whatever lens I'm putting on it. You're talking about you being in slavery and chains while you literally have other people. Of course, you didn't see them as people at the time.
That's the problem.
And that's another instance we're looking at it from our perspective.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily fit, but that's a topic for another day.
Oh, yeah. It's one, as you mentioned, when you're looking back, you're looking through a modern lens, and you're not seeing, just like how everything evolves, and that includes society. We as a society grow and evolve over time, and sometimes we revert back, where it's not always moving forward. And it's one of those things where I think, just in our lifetime, we've seen so much change on a worldwide scale. And I know in 100 or 200 years, historians will look back on our society and they'll nitpick, and they'll question why we did things this way, and why we weren't more, uh, I guess, enlightened. And it's just a curse of people, really, because moving forward, we're trying to move towards something better, and it's easy to look back on the past and point out all the problems and all the mistakes that were made, and forget the human element.
Hindsight is always 2020 is
That's it.
the thing I've always heard. But given your point you just made, another Patrick Henry quote actually works for this. He said, "I know of no way of judging of the future but by the past."
Yeah, that's it.
Patrick Henry was a very smart man. He was a very well spoken person. Apparently, he was like the Barack Obama or the. Granted, this guy was terrible, but Hitler was a great speaker. You know, different people. Of course, I mean, you've got to be a great speaker to have people get behind really, really terrible ideas.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why when you see politicians amassing followers, not necessarily because they have great ideas, but because they're popular, like kind of like rock stars almost. I support so and so, and no matter what they do, I'll always support them. That blind loyalty, just that's so dangerous, and there's so many instances throughout history to where masses of people blindly followed a leader or leaders, and it just resulted in just truly horrendous loss of life, and just uh, just god awful things. And so when I see that now, that goes for both sides of the aisle, red and blue. People, I vote this way, and I'll never not vote this way. And it's like, well, why? You're not even listening to the platform. You've already made up your mind before you've heard the issue.
Even though this is way off topic, yeah, I'm really annoyed by straight ticket voters. That is one of the things that really drives me insane.
I always get that question like, "Oh, you must be a Republican or Democrat," and I'm like, "No." It's like, "Oh, it's gotta be one or the other." I'm like, no, it doesn't.
no, it most certainly does not. But Patrick Henry is the man to reference at this point, because the government as a whole at every level is playing by I can't remember what politician it was or what, but he said never let a good crisis go to waste, and they're taking power and they're getting things from the people that they would never have normally been able to do. But when people are scared, they can get whatever they want. Like, hey, if you let us do this, this will help you. You're scared. Wow. Let's help you not be scared. And just like Ronald Reagan said, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." See how well that works? Doesn't. Heck, I believe it's California. There are cities in California that aren't even allowing their cops to go out to normal calls like domestic violence calls and shootings and whatnot. But they're letting them go out to enforce the stay-at-home orders and the masks and all that junk. But they're not coming to save you anymore. They're not coming to help you.
Right, but when you need it.
The government's already taken your ability to help yourself in a lot of instances. What have people been saying this whole time? People who support the Second Amendment, when the chips are down, the government cannot help you.
That's right. I mean,
not saying like cops don't want to.
Right.
If they can't, they can't.
Right. I mean, especially if things get to where there's just so much going on at once. I mean, they're only human. You can only send out so many people in uniform before you run out of people to, address all the issues going on. And I'd much rather rely on myself in an emergency than have to wait for somebody to come help me. You know what I mean?
But in the same token, though, they're also playing by the old rules of we're just doing our jobs because they're enforcing unconstitutional laws.
Right. Like,
So, yeah,
a
they're
friend
not
of ours.
blameless.
Well, they're not all. But a friend of ours got stopped last night on his way home from work and had to explain where he was coming from and where he was going.
Last night,
Last night.
uh, I guess that cop didn't get the memo that the stay-at-home order has lapsed in Mississippi. Dude needs to calm down. Dude, as in the uniformed individual.
There was a checkpoint and everything. I know my job because I'm labeled as an essential worker, and I guess the word expendable was taken. But
Ha!
I had to have my HR department give me an official letter stating that I am an essential employee and that I am allowed, in basic talk, basic speak, I'm allowed to be out after a certain point. But as Will said, this shelter in place order or whatever, they keep changing the name. It did expire, but back when it first started, I had to have this document in order to move around, just within a city.
Yeah,
And
and it's ridiculous, you know. These I hate to put out a blanket statement like this. Who am I kidding? I don't hate to put out a blanket statement like this. Cops are eating up this new power.
oh
Ooh,
yeah,
I get a whole new way to boost my pullover numbers to you know flex my authority. I get to ask people where they're going, what they're doing, ask them for their papers. I need your travel papers. Sounds a
right.
lot like a country from the 1930s and 40s.
It does. I mean, like when I first heard that they were going to be giving out these papers, I was saying that's not very American. You know, you're restricting my movements. I understand. I just having what I would consider common sense is when this all started, I started to limit my movements myself just to avoid potential exposure.
But it was a choice.
It was a choice. I had the choice. And I was like, in the best interest of me and my family, if I don't have to leave the house, I'm not.
Hence the reason why we're recording this over Skype.
Right. If I don't have to go somewhere, I'm not going to. But at the same time, I shouldn't
I'm
have to
not
have a document that
right,
says I
and I'm
can't.
not gonna restrict the movements of other people. If they want to make those choices, that's their choice to make. Um, the government being able to dictate what is quote unquote air quotes
Yeah,
essential is communist.
absolutely.
Because it in the American culture, every job is essential, every business is essential. The government shouldn't have the power to dictate. Oh, well, you get a job, do the Oprah thing. You know, you get a job, you get a
Yeah,
job, you get to work, you get to work. That's not how it's supposed to work here because every job is essential. Every business is essential. What about the guy who's running a small business that can't stay closed this whole time?
right. I
He
mean,
can't take out another loan no matter how they want to
low the
play it
interest
out.
rates are. Yeah, I mean, we're in a capitalist society. All jobs are essential.
I mean, thankfully, I have a job where I can work from home and still get paid this whole time because I have yet to get the first stimulus check while they're still talking about the next set. I couldn't
Right.
imagine if I had to actually have tried to live off of that or needed it to live off of,
Oh
and I
yeah.
ran out because I have two kids and a wife, and I'm the only one that works.
I mean, there's a lot of people who this is affecting very negatively. I mean, myself, I was set to start another job, and that got postponed until this is done. Um, so I mean, that being an instance of not being able to move forward, whereas other people, uh, a lot of
Aren't
people
able to
live
do
paycheck to
anything.
paycheck, right?
Right.
And so you're telling, oh, you can't go to work, stay at home. We're gonna give you this money to help you get through, but not realizing that, I have things I have to do. I can't feed my family on a promise that I'm going to have a stimulus check come in. Um, and so there's a lot of people suffering a lot worse uh, because of the shutdown. And while a lot of states are moving to start to ease restrictions, I think the basis of this whole argument is they should have the choice. You
If
can't.
Patrick Henry was alive today in these states, you know what Patrick Henry would be saying that we should do?
What's that?
Don't wait for the government's permission.
All right.
Reopen your shop. Go back to work at the shop that reopened on its own. There's no possible way that we all can be made to comply.
No, and I think a lot of these protests in these cities are starting to show people the power of their numbers.
But to quote A Bug's Life, if one of those ants stand up, they all might stand up. Those ants outnumber us 100 to 1.
Yeah, the power's in the numbers, because some of the first protests, the authorities showed up trying to shut it down, and then they quickly realized, oh wait, there's a lot more of them than there are of us. I remember growing up, and my uncle was telling me about the power of protest, things like that. And the thing is, if 1 million people show up, you ain't really got a choice except to listen to what they have to say. It's just the powers in the numbers.
But there's just as many people sitting at home talking bad about the people going out and doing things because they've succumbed to the fear and everything else. And there are people who have served in the military. There's one guy, I believe his last name's like Dakota or something like that, that's been online, and he apparently served 4 terms overseas and blah, blah. Talk in the same breath as saying he fought to protect rights. He also says, and I'm not paraphrasing, he says, F your rights.
Wait, what?
Exactly. Exactly. You can't do both, bro.
That's what we call an oxymoron, or 2 opposing words or statements.
Or an oxymoron being spoken by a moron, but I digress. So I think this is a good spot for us.
I do.
Here at the Backwards History Podcast, just like Patrick Henry said, the only way to judge the future is by the past. The past is telling us that we're screwing up royally.
Oh, yeah.
But don't take our word for it.
Never.
Do your own research. Form your own opinions. Trust, but verify.